Good day, subscribers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Levi. This is the Cybersecurity Education channel. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to be talking about the dangers of online DNA tests, or like the genetic testing that you see. So you'll see like TV ads like 23andMe or Ancestry.com and stuff like that, and you're like, Levi, this is a great deal. Like, I can get all this genetic information about myself for only $200. Like, this seems like a great deal. Like, I can find out like my family history background. I can find out like how much of a German I am, how much of a French I am. I can find out like if I'm adopted, like who my real parents are, stuff like that. What type of potential genetic diseases that we could have in our family history, that I could help prevent or make the symptoms worse, right? But there's a bunch of risks here, as you can see, and so we're going to talk about this in this video, and hopefully watching this video will help you make an informed decision on whether these risks are worth it or not, okay? So we're going to talk about 6 different risks today. One point I want to make before we start talking about the risks, it's not only you that's doing the genetic testing that could potentially bring these risks upon you. Like any type of immediate family member, like your parents, like cousins, anything like that, they can cause a risk to you because that's part of your genetic data. And the more and more of your family members that put their genetic data in those systems, the more information there is going to be about you in those systems. So this is something to think about. All right, so the first risk is insurance discrimination. Yes, I know. Insurance being used to discriminate. We've never seen that before, right? There never was such a thing as pre-existing conditions, right? So fortunately, there is a law that helps protect people, at least in the United States anyway. It's called the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Here's an article from NIH.gov on it a little bit. Basically, it makes it illegal for health insurance providers to use genetic info to make a decision about a person's health. As you can see here, it says this means that health insurance companies cannot use the results of a direct-to-consumer genetic test to deny coverage or require you to pay higher premiums. But there's some catches in here, like usual, right? This does not apply when an employer has fewer than 15 employees. It does not cover people in the U.S. military or those receiving benefits through the Veterans Health Administration or Indian Health Office. It also doesn't apply to other forms of insurance such as disability, long-term care, or life insurance. So, I mean, the good news is there's a law that's regulating it. The bad news is I can just see so many loopholes through there, you know. And there's already a bunch of built-in loopholes. So like regular insurance, if you work for a company that has more than 15 people, you're set. You're not going to be able to get that used against you right now. But the problem is down the line, we all know how insurance companies are. At some point in time, that regulation is going to get changed because there's too much money involved for them, right? And so at some point in time, I have a feeling that law will be changed. Insurance companies will be able to raise your price depending on what type of genetic conditions you have. You know, like if you have Huntington's disease or something like that, that's going to cost a lot of money. Over the long run, like to get treatment, they're going to jack up your price. They might even say, hey, we're not going to cover that at all, right? So I could totally see that coming. If you're watching this video like 10 years from now, it'll be interesting to see if that's the case or not. But, you know, health insurance companies are greedy, the healthcare industry is greedy, so it wouldn't surprise me if I saw that. And then you had those other things, like if you work for a company that has less than 15 people and you get your health insurance through them, like you're just pretty much screwed, right? They could potentially use that genetic information against you and raise your rates or deny you coverage on things and stuff like that. So that's something to think about. Maybe you want to go through like the federal government's insurance or something like that. And then like the other things that weren't covered in there, like life insurance, like they could potentially deny you a claim on life insurance because you had some crappy disease or something like that, right? I mean, that's that's pretty crappy. Either that or they could jack up your rates because you had something like that and you're more of a risk to die sooner, right? So just something to think about. I could also see it being a factor, maybe even like an automobile insurance or something. Like if you have a certain disease, they might be like, well, you're more of a risk, so we're going to jack your automobile insurance up too. So it's just something to be aware of. Like I have a feeling this could be a bigger and bigger deal as more people submit more and more data to those genetic testing companies. So it's something to be aware of. So that's risk number one. Risk number two, your info could get hacked. So the information uploaded to those sites, if there's a data breach on those sites, guess what? All of your information is out there for the hackers to look at, and they can distribute that out to everybody if they wanted to. This has actually already been done before. So back in June 2018, there was a hack on a genetic testing site called MyHeritage. They had 92 million accounts hacked. I think basically it just had family trees out there, which is a big deal because that can be used by attackers to gain more information about you. And the more information they have about you, the more they can target your other accounts. They can target your family members, stuff like that. So you really don't want your genetic information getting out there, and getting hacked is a potential for that, like it is a lot of things. All right, the third one we're going to talk about is privacy. So, you know, in the United States, like the privacy laws suck here. Let's face it, right? There really is no such thing as privacy. Companies can change their privacy policies whenever they want. And most people don't read the privacy policies because they're so long and they're so complicated. Like, who wants to sit there and read through every little thing, right? The only type of regulation that there is that Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act that we talked about before. But what that covers is pretty broad. I mean, really that only covers health insurance. It doesn't cover anything else. So there's nothing stopping organizations from sharing your data with other people and not telling you, or not knowing because you didn't read the privacy statement that said that they could, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is too, with respect to privacy, is so your genetic information can be sold off to other companies, and that genetic company can be making a profit off of your information, and you don't make a dime off of it, which is a big deal to me because that could be sold off to some pharmaceutical company that makes billions of dollars off of everybody's DNA testing that was put in there, and the people don't get anything back for it. That just seems crappy, but you know how the pharmaceutical companies work, it wouldn't surprise me if that happened. The next one we'll talk about, number 4, the results accuracy. The results aren't guaranteed to be completely accurate. There's no set standard on how testing should be done. So your genetic results could vary from site to site. For the most part, from what I've read, most of them are pretty close to each other, but there is some variation between the different ones, right? So until there's some type of standardization for those, your results might not be completely accurate, right? And then there's no there's no board of independent scientists to review the results, right? At this point in time, from what I've read around on the internet, the accuracy of the results isn't really known at this point in time. So that's just something to be aware of. Number 5, law enforcement. Of course, anytime you have any type of beneficial information that law enforcement can pull, they're going to use that. So law enforcement are more and more trying to use this information for investigations because it's super helpful for them. Like if they have DNA evidence, but it doesn't match what's in their database, but it matches a family member of somebody else that's in that database, it makes it much easier for them to trace down the family tree and find that person. There's actually a case called the Golden State Killer. This guy had killed and raped like a bunch of people, and they were having a hard time tracking him down. And they didn't have a match on his DNA in their own DNA records, but using a genealogy website, they found a partial match. And then they were able to take that partial match and bounce down the family tree to really take their huge list of suspects and narrow them down all the way into very few, and it helped them trace them down really fast. So if you're somebody that commits crime, this could be an issue for you. I don't recommend committing crimes, and then you don't have to worry about it, right? But this could still be a problem. It's just another vector that the government can get into our lives, and it's not necessarily a great thing for everybody, right? Finally, number 6, the mental aspect from the results that you get. Let's say that you find there's certain things that maybe you really don't want to know. Like, let's say you're adopted and you find out who your real parents are. You look them up and you find out they're not the best people in the world, or they did something that you wish that you wouldn't have known, you know. So there's a risk that you might find out things that you don't want. Same thing with like genetic diseases. Let's say you find out you have Huntington's disease or something like that, or you're susceptible to Huntington's disease. Well, that kind of sucks. I mean, Huntington's disease is not a very good disease to have. You can look it up, you can Google it. I mean, basically, you have a slow decline in value over your life, and it's not a great thing to have, right? Would you really want to know if you were going to be susceptible to a terrible disease later on, or would you rather just have that come up upon you? So it's really up to you. So yeah, these are the 6 different. These are the 6 different risks of genetic DNA testing. My personal opinion, I think the risks outweigh the rewards. I mean, there are some pretty good rewards. You can see your family history, which is pretty interesting. But to me, at this point in time, I wouldn't trust these companies with our data. I wouldn't trust the government with our data. But at this point in time, it's another vector of data on you that I wouldn't trust other companies having. They'll abuse it. I mean, look at all the privacy scandals with Facebook and stuff like that, of information that we've given out. The same thing is going to happen with genetic testing. And you can't change your genetic testing, you know. You can't change your genetics. Like, you're born with those and you're stuck with those. So once people have those, like there's no going back, right? So it's up to you. You can weigh the risk and decide if this is something you want to do or not. I just highly recommend it. I recommend against it. And I personally won't be doing it, and I will be encouraging my family members not to do it either, because it's not a good thing for us right now. Personally, I think there needs to be more regulation on it before people are giving all this information out. I just don't see it being a good thing. Down the road, if that law ever gets changed, I don't want to have my insurance rates skyrocket because of a genetic test that I submitted or my family member submitted. To me, that's not fair at all, but I can see it going down that road. So just something to be aware of. So one last time, the risks are insurance discrimination, info could get hacked, you could have privacy issues, have inaccurate results, law enforcement can get involved, and you know, there's that mental aspect where it's like, do you really want to know, that you have some crappy disease that's coming up in the future of your life, or would you rather just not know about it and live a good life up to that point, right? Like, do you want to spend your whole life worrying about it? So I hope you guys really enjoyed this content. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a great day.